So what's up, everybody? Woo! Down on bed.
I got
Just kidding. Anyways, I'm just gonna move on. But so some of you guys notice, when people raise their hands during worship, I just want to kind of explain what that means. The best way that I can explain is why I do it. Is when somebody comes at you with a gun, typically you're gonna raise your hands. It's a sign of surrender. That's why I do it. It's just me surrendering everything that I have to God, saying, "Hey, take my heart. I'm open for you." I'll start out by telling you guys a little story. See, my whole life, and even to this day, I suffer with confidence issues, and it's actually it's a big struggle in my life. But just a few months ago, I had the opportunity to go audition for The Voice. It was awesome. It was really cool. But I felt really bad because my brother lives in Ohio, and he offered to drive, which would have been a total of 8 hours one way, just to take me to The Voice audition. It was great that he believed in me so much, but I didn't really believe in myself. All this meant to me was if I failed, I just wasted all my brother's time. Just to back up a little bit, the relationship between my brother and I has not always been as it is today. You see, just like any younger sibling, I used to wear his clothes or whatever, but he wouldn't just tell me, "Hey, take my shirt off." He'd throw me on the ground, rip the shirt off, didn't matter if he ripped it or not, and then go on for 20 minutes about how he's a bodybuilder and I'm going to be this puny little twig forever. He wasn't wrong, but that's okay. But you can see why, I was a little skeptical of failing me. I just didn't want to fail. He was my brother. Couldn't do that to him. But, I got to Philly, I was standing in line, and I wrestled with this, like, he's going to be so jacked if I don't make this. So I was standing in line for 2 hours, and I finally got inside, and I'm like, "Yes! I'm finally in here. I'm going to do this thing." Unfortunately, no, that's not how it works. I was under the impression that you only had to wait in line for a couple hours. 8 would be the total hours that I waited in line until I actually got to audition. So there's 4 sections. Each section takes 2 hours. It was horrible. It was a long wait. But, while I was waiting, I heard a bunch of singers, they're like practicing and doing all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, I really want this, but these people are professionals. Like, there's no way that, like, God, why did you even bring me here? Just so I could fail? This doesn't make any sense to me. So, in this process, previous winners were walking around talking to people, taking pictures and stuff. So finally, I grabbed one. I was like, "Hey, man, what's it like? How's your life changed?" And he's like, "Do you write your own songs?" He's like, "Well, yeah." Like, "Yeah. I'm trying to be on The Voice so I can, get a music career going." He's like, "I'm gonna be straight up with you." He's like, "I used to write my own songs too, but I sold out." It's like, I followed fame and threw away my passion. It's like, I'm miserable. And I was like, okay. I didn't know if he was going to go and tell me about all of his problems and miseries, and I was about to be his therapist for 3 hours, but hey, I had nothing better to do. But I kind of just was like, "Hey man, thanks for your honesty. Like, I really appreciate it." So a total of 8 hours, I walk into this room with 9 other people. I throw away my confidence issue, and I sing a song for 30 seconds. The producer looks at me and he's like, "Man, that was awesome. Next." So I didn't make it. I didn't make it to the next round. And when I walked out, I couldn't even look my brother in the eye. I was like, "Hey, I didn't make it." He's like, "Dude, that's fine. What'd you learn though?" To me, this was so incredible because he had never been like that. I was expecting him to just beat me down verbally or whatever, but he didn't. And what I learned is that that's not my calling. I knew that God put me up here to be a worship leader, and it just wasn't meant for me. So maybe you're here today or tonight and you struggle with confidence issues like I do. And you've come to a place where it's about to be really tested, and you're not sure how you can move forward. Or maybe you've been in a bad relationship, and it's left you scarred. Now you have this amazing person that really cares about you, that you want to be with, that wants to be with you, but you can't do it because of your trust issues, because of the past. It's holding you back. You can't move forward. Or maybe you've been told too many times that you're not good enough, you're not worth it, you're not normal. And you're so angry with yourself walking around that it's so hard to move forward. because you believe these lies. Maybe you're looking for a relationship, and you're too scared to just put yourself out there because you think you're not attractive enough. Because you just haven't realized yet that God created you, and you're beautiful. God doesn't make mistakes. Maybe you can't move forward because of something that happened to you. It wasn't even your fault, but it did. And that memory haunts you every day, and you're just stuck. So I want to take a look at this guy named Joshua. Joshua was basically like Moses' assistant. He was told by God in this account that God was going to make him a great leader in the eyes of the Israelites. They would know that God was with them just as he was with Moses. God told Joshua to tell the priests, when they reached the Jordan River, take a few steps in and stop there. So Joshua obeyed God and did just that. In verse 3-4, Joshua says, so the people left their camp to cross the Jordan, and the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. It was the harvest season, and the Jordan was overflowing with banks. But as soon as the feet of the priests who were carrying the Ark touched the water at the river's edge, the water above that point began backing up a great distance away from the town called Adam, which is near Zarthan. And the water below that point flowed into the Dead Sea until the riverbed was dry. Then all the people crossed over to the town of Jericho. Meanwhile, the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Lord's Covenant stood on dry ground in the middle of the riverbed. As the people passed by, they waited until the whole nation of Israel had crossed the Jordan on dry ground. So you see, the ark represented the presence of God. The priests had to take the first step into the water for the Jordan to part. What if the priests would have been too afraid to take that first step? In verse 15 it says that the riverbed was overflowing, that it was harvest season. So you got this big flowing huge water. It'd be pretty scary just to start walking into it, wouldn't it? You could have been drugged under. There were big stones at the bottom of this river. You could have hit their head and been killed on them. But sometimes God offers no solution to our problem until we move forward in faith. The priests were the first to take the ark. They went ahead of the Israelites, which represented the presence of God. So you could say that the presence of God had to go before the Israelites so that they could fix their eyes forward and have faith that what's ahead of them is great. Sometimes when we get saved, we look forward to just going to heaven, which is great. It's going to be an awesome time. But we also need to look forward to what he's going to do before we leave earth. Because he teaches us how to pray. Your kingdom come, your will be done here as in heaven. So we have to look forward and move forward. And it all starts with that one step of faith and obedience. Because the first step in faith and obedience is exactly what God used to split the river. And the Israelites crossed it on dry ground. So whatever obstacle is in your life, whatever river you've come to, you may be scared and not really sure what's going to happen. But trust God and know that he works all things together for your good. So if you just take that one step in faith and obedience, you'll find yourself not just getting through, but getting over the deep water on completely dry ground, not even getting your feet wet. Because there's a difference between going through something or getting through something and overcoming. Heck, the drug addict that doesn't even know Jesus got through. But when you have Jesus Christ in your heart, you overcome. So after everyone had crossed the river, God tells Joshua to choose 12 men, one from each tribe, and go to the middle where the priests were standing and get 12 stones. So Joshua tells them, go into the middle of the Jordan in the front of the ark of the Lord your God. Each of you must pick up one stone and carry it out on your shoulder. 12 stones in all, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. We will use these stones to build a memorial in the future. Your children will ask, what do these stones mean? Then you can tell them, they remind us that the Jordan River stopped flowing when the Ark of the Lord's covenant went across. These stones will stand as a memorial among the people of Israel forever. So God tells them to go back into the middle of what they just went through and get something out of it. Get something out of it that's going to prepare their faith for where they're going. So understand that these were not small pebbles. Had God not have separated the water, these big, huge rocks could have been the very things that killed them. But the very things that could have killed them, it's funny, they walked right over. Became their stepping stones. So that thing that you think is going to kill you, you know, that memory, they left me, I'm never going to be good enough. God wants you to know that the very thing that you're going to walk right over, you're going to overcome. I think we can all agree that we come to obstacles or deep waters, quite often. But just as the Israelites got the stones out of the Jordan, what can we get out of our obstacle or our deep water that we have to cross? Now I understand that there's 12 stones, and each one represented the tribe of Israel. But I was like, how can I apply this to my life? So I was thinking, you know, there's 12. There's 12 months. You know, I was a little depressed, but I found some joy in January. I didn't have a Valentine, but you know what? I found some faith in February. And God showed me extra mercy in March. So on and so forth. So the very things that could kill us, we have to find our stone and carry it out. And it'll be the tool, the evidence, that we didn't just get through, but we overcame. And just as the stones were set up and the Israelites kept moving forward, sometimes we need to look forward, move forward, and it's okay to point back. Don't look back, but you can point back. You can point back to the thing that God brought you through, because that's now the evidence of his faithfulness for where he's taking you. You can point back to remind the devil why you're confident moving forward. When Joshua set up a memorial of the stones, he placed the stones in a circle. I believe it's because crossing over things from doubt to belief, it's something that continuously happens. Verse 21 says, Then Joshua said to the Israelites, In the future your children will ask, What do these stones mean? Then you can tell them, This is where the Israelites crossed the Jordan on dry ground. That's it. That's all you got to tell them. They could have said a lot of bad stuff that happened. They could have talked about how they walked around for 40 years in a circle in the wilderness before they came to the Jordan. But they don't. So when you come to your deep water, you can choose what you carry in, and you can choose what you carry out. We can walk in carrying the presence of God. What you take out will depend on you and what your obstacle is. You know, the Israelites went through a lot of crap. Just like we go through a lot of crap. But they weren't saying all the bad stuff that happened. They were glorifying the miracles. They were putting a memorial for just the miracles. That's all that it was there for. So when you go through these deep waters and you want to tell people about it, do you want to memorialize the miracle or the misery? Just want to hit this last point before we go on. Worship team, if you want to come up and just kind of play behind me, that'd be cool. You know, it's easy to cross a body of water when you're just moving at a slow pace. But what about when you have enemies and doubts and fears right on your butt? You know, they're chasing you. This is not the first time that the Israelites crossed a body of water on dry ground. When the Israelites came out of slavery, they were being led by Moses. Well, Pharaoh sent his army to chase after the Israelites. So you have this army, same army that enslaved these people for years, chasing after them. They're here, army's here, Red Sea's here. They see the Red Sea and they're basically like, why did you even bring us here? Like, we'd rather go back into slavery. You know, kind of like that guy that you keep going back to, that you know is destructive. But you're too afraid to move forward. You're too afraid of what's ahead, so you stay complacent. Stay complacent because it's what you've known. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water in the strong east wind. The wind blew all night, turning the seabed into dry land. So the people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground with the walls of water on each side. Then the Egyptians and all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and charioteers chased them into the middle of the sea. But just before dawn, the Lord looked down on the Egyptian army from the pillar of the fire and big cloud, and threw their forces into total confusion. He twisted their chariot wheels, making their chariots difficult to drive. Let's get out of here, away from the Israelites, the Egyptians shouted. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. See, they had no choice but to move forward. God split the sea, and they're like, we're going to trust you, we're going. But you can imagine being in the middle of a sea with your enemies and your doubts and your fears right behind you. Nowhere to go. You got 2 walls of water on each side. You got nowhere to go. If you stop, if you stay complacent, it's the very thing that's going to kill you. God is so awesome. It says, when all the Israelites had reached the other side, the Lord said to Moses, raise your hand over the sea again. Then the waters will rush back over the Egyptians and their chariots and charioteers. So as the sun began to rise, Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the waters rushed back into its usual place. The Egyptians tried to escape, but the Lord swept them into the sea. Then the waters returned and covered all the chariots and charioteers, and the entire army of Pharaoh. All the Egyptians who had chased the Israelites into the sea, not a single one survived. You see, God doesn't want to just bring you out of Egypt. God doesn't want to just bring you out of slavery. He doesn't just want to unchain you from your fears and your doubts. He wants to drown them out of you. So when you get to the water, you have your fears and your doubts behind you, the sound of the whips that lashed you for years, those words, the memories, the bad relationships, know it's because your doubts can't drown on dry ground. God brought you to this water because your enemies can't swim. If you guys feel comfortable, let's just stand. And I want to use this as a symbol, and if you're comfortable doing so, let's just raise our hands. Raise our hands just as Moses raised his hands to create a sea. So we're going to raise our hands in this place right now, creating a wave of worship. A wave that's going to come crashing down in this place to drown out the enemy, drown out all our doubts, drown out all our fears.
You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescue me and I will stand and say I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescue me and I will stand and say I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescue me and I will stand and say I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescue me and I will stand and say I am a child.